If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. If you're new here and you like this video, subscribe so that you can get more videos like this. Today I'm going to be talking about admissions tips to help all those people who are applying for graduate school. Honestly, even college probably could help as well. Ignore my nails. I'm going to show them. I know they look a mess. I'm going to work on that, but not today. Okay, so we're going to be breaking down what I did when I applied to Georgia Tech, how I got in, what I feel like could be helpful for you. I am not an admissions director, so I want to start this off by saying that I don't know exactly what they're looking for. I cannot answer that question. I can just share what I did, what worked for me, and what I feel like could work for you. So let's get started. So my first piece of advice that I would offer is to tell a story. I tell people that and they're like, what are you talking about? So when you're putting everything together for your admissions application, your portfolio, your essays, your recommendations, all of those things, you want to have a story about who you are and what kind of applicant that you are, right? You want it to be cohesive. You don't want to sound like, I don't really know what I want to do. I just decided that I want to do this yesterday. I mean, for some people that does work, but if you're trying to apply to a really competitive program, in my opinion, you can be a lot stronger by having a cohesive story. So let me give you an example. For me, I say for me all the time, I'm sorry guys, but it is for me. This is what I did. I was a teacher, as you all know, or maybe you don't know, but I was. And so the story I told was about a teacher wanting to go into educational technology. I picked that because I have a background in teaching and I have knowledge about teaching so that I could craft this story and actually know what I was talking about. If I would have picked business, it would have been like, okay, I don't really know anything about business. I'm gonna make all this up. Like, no, tell a true story based on your background. Mine was teaching before I switched to trying to be a UX designer. So I told that story. I wrote about how all the things I had done up until this point led me to applying to school. So for example, in my essays, I talked about how I was a lead technology innovator for my school. I helped teachers to integrate technology in their classroom. I designed different modules and tech things for my students and other students in the same grade level. I talked about all of that. And then when I went to my portfolio to continue the story, I also included things about educational technology, and I'll get to that in a second. Recommenders, they came also from my background education. So they were my principal and my assistant principal. And they are adding to this story about me wanting to go into educational technology. And then what else? I think that that's all you need, but I made sure that it all was cohesive. It wasn't like, I want to do ed tech here, but then in my essays, I think I want to go into research. And then in my portfolio, I'm talking about writing. Like, it's all the same story. Here's a tip. It doesn't matter if you think you might change your mind. Most people change their minds when they go into school. That's okay. What matters is that you have a cohesive story and you are a strong applicant, because it sounds like you know exactly what you want to do. I felt like I wanted to go in ed tech. Was I entirely sure? No, but I felt like I know it's technology. I just maybe don't know exactly what aspect, but this is what I know. This is what I'm good at. And in my essays, I can spell out that passion for educational technology because that's what I know. So if you're a nurse deciding I want to be in technology now, talk about healthcare, right? Do healthcare apps if you have to do a portfolio. Talk about healthcare tech in your essays. If you have to mention professors that you want to work with, talk about professors that focus on healthcare. That's what I did. I picked professors who focused in ed tech. If you are coming from a background of, I don't know, working in finance, fintech, right? Talk about finance tech and get your recommenders from people who were at your job, right? Don't try to like go all the way back to college if you graduated years ago. I mean, if you just graduated, great. But if you didn't, like I had graduated 3.5 years ago, it didn't make sense. So if you work in finance, and you have a great manager and great teammates, ask your manager, ask your teammates. They know you as someone in finance and they can speak strongly to how you would be really capable of going into finance technology. So that's what I did. Tell a story. It's super helpful. So next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the recommendations and what I did. So like I mentioned, I got my recommendations from my principal and my assistant principal. They were my bosses in education, and I made sure that I leaned into the story I was already telling. Hey, I'm this girl coming from education, moving into educational technology. I picked people who could match that story. So do the same. Find people in the field that you are an expert at, even if you don't want to stay in that field, and let them speak to you because they've seen you shine in that field, right? Hopefully, they've seen you do a really good job in that work that you've done with the passion you had there. They will be able to write you a really strong recommendation letter versus reaching out to, like some people ask, hey, should I ask alumni of the school to write me a letter? And those people really can't speak passionately about who you are and your strengths. I personally would never recommend asking a random person that you don't know for a recommendation letter, because the way that they'll speak about you is so different versus someone who knows you personally, has known you for 1, 2, 3 years, even months, but they've worked with you. They can speak so much to who you are as a person and why you're qualified to get into this school and get this degree. If you're graduating from high school and maybe you're thinking about, college, same thing. Pick those teachers that you have had classes with that can write you recommendations, who know your best work, the best work that you've done. Pick those people. If you didn't do your best work at that job, maybe don't ask those people for your recommendation letter. I did ask one professor because I just happened to take this math class, and I asked the professor, but he didn't really respond. Or no, it wasn't a math class. It was programming. It was Intro to Java, and I just was kind of interested in that, and he didn't really respond. And it was fair because our interactions are kind of limited to 1 semester of class, and it wasn't a lot of personal interactions, obviously. So it was better that I asked my principal and assistant principal, and I would say the same thing for you. Look out for those personal relationships, people who've worked with you and know you. Another thing that I did that would be really helpful is, so I gave them a list of paper, kind of like a resume, but it was very easy to read, just a bulleted list of all of my accomplishments in that field. So being a technology innovator, a leader in my school, creating tech in my school, I presented at a technology conference in our district, different things like that. I compiled them all onto a list, and I gave it to the person writing my letter. I also compiled, at the top I put what degree I was gonna get, why I personally wanted to get that degree. So there goes the story. I let them in on the story I was telling. Hey, this is what I wanna do, this is why. So when they went to write their letters, they were able to integrate all those things. They could pull from the story that I was telling. There goes the cohesion, right? Okay, it's consistent. Then they could pull in those amazing things that I had done that maybe they knew I did, but they didn't remember because there's like 100 other teachers in the school, or whatever. There's a lot to think about. So I reminded them, hey, remember I did all these things? And they included that in the letter, and it was so easy for them to write. If you're coming out of college, same thing. If you have an advisor you've worked with, a professor, tell that story at the top of your paper. Hey, I want to go get this degree. This is why. And then here's all the accomplishments that I did in college, all the clubs that I was in, my GPA, everything that is related to either leadership or this degree that I want to go get. Same thing for high school, exact same advice. Give them that paper and make it easy on them. Also remind them of your deadline. So I gave them about a month to write it, and I would follow up like each week. Hey, how's it going? Because I need this. It's due in 3 weeks. Okay, probably give them more time than I did, but give them all those documents. Give them the deadline. Let them know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to check in a week. I'll be kind of checking in weekly, and make sure that they will write really awesome things about you. So now we're going to talk quickly about essays and portfolios and what I did. So again, this story comes back. I told the story in my essays about why I wanted to go to that school, what professors I wanted to work with, and what I wanted to do in the field. It all had to do with educational technology. So whatever your story is, stick to it here. This is so important. And pull it into every part of your essay so that it's clear who you are and what you want to do. And there's no question when they finish looking at your application, they know your name and what it is you want to do, and they can feel your passion through your writing and through your work. Same thing for your portfolio. I designed for mine a teacher planner for teachers, and I redesigned Google Drive for elementary aged kids, because if you can't read, Google Drive is actually really difficult to use, as well as I redesigned Google Classroom because the kids who can't read and just elementary school kids, they all have the same issue with that. And I put that in my portfolio. Was it the most amazing thing I had ever designed? No. I mean, no. But I didn't know anything about the program at that point, and I had no background in design. So to go and do those 2 projects, to look up UX case studies and put all that passion into it, it showed a lot about my determination and drive to get into the program. If you're trying to become a UX designer like me and you want to go to grad school and you know nothing about the process like I did, that's okay. For your portfolio, what I did was I went and researched, okay, what are the steps of the UX design process? I tried to follow it as much as possible. I didn't do as much research as I probably should. I didn't know at the time. But I did all of the steps with the design, and I did get feedback and stuff, and I included that in my case study. And I made a portfolio on a website. It was Wix that I used. That portfolio is no longer live. It's a hot mess. But, you know, I did what I could at the time. It was the best I could do. And I would say just do that. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you work in healthcare, come up with 2 healthcare, you know, 1 app, maybe 1 website, 2 apps. It doesn't matter that you've come up with. A lot of times they'll have a list of challenges that you can do for design, and they'll present problems like design an app that helps people find a car or a ride share or a bike. Like, look for those things in healthcare, and you probably know the problems. That's what makes it stronger. So like, I knew my students had an issue with Google Drive. I knew that teachers' planners are not helpful. And so I tackled those real problems. If you tell a story and you're working in healthcare, and that's your expertise, you will know the problems that people have with technology and healthcare, and you will be able to attack them expertly because you know all about it. Same thing with business, same thing with finance or law, anything you're coming from. You know what is needed in that field. That's why I say it'll make you a stronger candidate than designing some random like alarm phone thing, like, or a wake up app or a reading app. I mean, those are great, don't get me wrong, but like, is your passion really designing phone alarms? Or, you know, you don't have the passion there. And even if you're not passionate anymore about what you're doing, you were at one point, right? So draw deep down inside you, find that strength and use it to get this done. All right, guys, so now we're gonna talk about the GRE. Oh my gosh, that test drove me crazy. I hate standardized tests, I really do. I don't mind taking them, but it's just stressful and it really doesn't matter. Like, you get into school, no one ever looks at it again. It doesn't matter, either you're gonna do the work or you're not. And I just personally don't believe that a test is gonna tell you whether I can do the work. More so, my grades beforehand, my application, my portfolio, like my drive to even do all of these things, and the quality tells you that I'll be fine. Whatever, gotta be done. Good news though, if you want to apply to Georgia Tech, good news though, if you want to apply to Georgia Tech, and you should, the GRE is not required for fall 2021 admitted students, which is amazing. So for a human-computer interaction program, you do not need the GRE if you're applying right now to start next fall, which is next August. That is amazing. First off, it will save you money. Second off, a lot of people are having trouble even getting access to the test. Thank you for equity, that's amazing. And just typically certain groups of people tend to do better on standardized tests, which again is an equity issue to begin with. So it's wonderful that they are doing this. Take advantage of it. There's a lot of schools that also don't require a GRE. I would apply to those, to be honest, but you know, it might not be avoidable. So here's some tips I have for that. Basically, I got prep books. I got the Kaplan GRE book, which was enough. They also have, I think it's the Manhattan books that are supposed to be good. and I feel like I'm forgetting something. There's this one book, I don't remember what it's called, but it has all of these practice questions. It's like, there's I think a reading one and a math one, and it's just like practice tests. Those are huge. Take practice tests. What I would do is take one every single day for different subjects. So I would do like reading test one day, math test one day, reading test one day, math test one day. And then when I was done, I would review the answers and what I got wrong. So if I missed a question, I'd go read what was right. I'd look it up online on the like Kaplan online thing. And then I'd practice it, change the numbers, try it again, and then move on. I did the same thing with reading. I also did practice writing, and I would try to go and assess it based on the examples that they give you, which is really, really helpful. Practice test, practice. I put a timer on. I tried to go in the similar situation in quiet space. You can even try some of them online. It was really helpful. And then at least once a week, I tried to do like a full practice test of all the sections, which is not fun, but it has to be done. And that's the thing, a lot of this is just discipline, guys. Like, you don't want to do it, but you have to do it. So think about what's going to motivate you. For me, I knew getting into this program would make it worth it, and it has been worth it. So I said, okay, I can take a month, 2 months to hustle and practice every day, prep every single day, work on my application every single day. And I will be so glad I did it at the end, that I didn't choose to watch Netflix or go on Instagram. Instead, I got ready to get in this program, and then I got in. So it was worth it. Another thing you can do is get those GRE apps. I had one of those. It was great because it did like a question of the day. So every morning I had like a reading question and a math question, and I would just do it from my bed. It's really simple. And then review the answers, what I got right, what I got wrong. You can also do groups with other people. Maybe not right now, maybe they're like virtual. But that always helps, is taking the test together and then reviewing them together as well. So you have some people cheering you on and some accountability, because yeah, it gets tough out here. Then the last tip I would give you to make it less overwhelming, set a time limit. Listen, I would not advise you to do, I'm gonna study 6 hours a day, 5 hours a day. First off, no, you're not. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you will 1 time, 2 times. By the 3rd day, you're over it. You're tired, you don't want to do it anymore, and you're just like, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to study. I don't have that kind of discipline. I don't have that kind of focus. I don't want to do that. So I started about 2 months, I want to say, ahead of time, which is pretty good. And I just said 30 minutes a day. That's it. I'm going to pick the same time every day. I'm going to set an alarm for 30 minutes so I know I'll stop. And I'll do a practice test and a few questions, or I'll just do a few questions. Whatever it is I want it to work on, 30 minutes, that's it. Then I was done. But every day you're learning a little bit at a time, and you're not overwhelming yourself. I really wouldn't do more than an hour. I really wouldn't, because it's just overkill. You're gonna get overwhelmed and stressed out, and it's not worth stressing over. So set a timer, keep it short, do a little bit each day, and you'll get through it. And I know that you can kill the test. Last thing is, if you don't get the scores you wanted, apply anyway, please. The schools are serious when they say that they look at everything. I think one of my scores was like 1 point below, and the other one was a few points below, but they still accepted me because they looked at everything that I had. My portfolio, my recommendations, my letters, just everything. So don't get down on yourself. Take it again if you want to. If not, don't. And just apply and see what happens. If you don't get in, it wasn't meant to be. But don't tell yourself no. Let them tell you no. So when you're finally done with your application, you've done your portfolio, you've done your essays, you've got your recommenders done, and maybe you did the GRE if you had to, but for Georgia Tech, you don't. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you did that, now it's time to get some feedback and review. This is so important. You want to let as many people look at it as possible. I think your recommendation letters, that's not an option, but with your essays, with your portfolio, if you have to do one, those are things you can do. So what I did was I found people who are good at different things. Like my mom, she's really great at grammar. She's so good at that. So she read my essays and she read my portfolio looking for any grammar errors or anything that just didn't make any sense. And then I had some friends who were already in design. And so they went through my portfolio looking at the design of things and the layout, and they gave me feedback on that. So I would find people who were really good at certain things, and I wouldn't have them read for everything. I just say, hey, I want you to focus on like these grammar errors, and then I'd have someone else go in and focus on the story. So when you go through all these things, who do you think I am after reading it all? Can you tell that I'm someone coming from education that wants to do ed tech? If you can't tell, I need to go back and fix it. Then someone else is looking at the design, the layout, the cohesiveness. Same thing with my resume. I think we had to submit that as well. So you definitely want to give yourself enough time to get feedback and revise, because you will have things to revise. There's nothing worse than sending in rushed work that there's grammar errors, it's not grammatically correct, it's not correct English, it just looks thrown together or sloppy. That's just no. Okay, no. You have one shot. They're not gonna say, oh, you had too many errors, can you send this back? No, you have one shot to apply for this year at least. So give it all you got. Let many people look at it. You're going to appreciate it so much. You also can look and see what other people did. There's example essays online that can kind of help you know how to structure yours for different questions. There's tons of portfolios online. Yours might not look exactly like that, because if you're coming from a field that's not UX design, or you're coming out of school, it's not gonna match that flow to follow. And that's what I would do. It would be really helpful to you to remember, though, to tell your story all throughout. It's gonna really help you. And also remember that if you don't get in, then that means that there's something bigger and better and greater planned for you. And don't stress over it. Don't get depressed, don't get sad. Move on. Go do something else. Apply again next year, or apply to different schools. And think about all the things you've tried to do that did not work out. Looking back at it now, you're glad it didn't work out, and you start to understand why it didn't work out, because there's something better for you, something that would push you, cause you to grow even more, something that you needed more in that moment. So if it's not this, that's perfectly fine. Don't get down on yourself. You can do this, and there's so many paths to become a UX designer. And if you're applying to college, again, there's so many schools that would be lucky to have you. So thank you for sticking around. Please let us know what schools you're trying to apply to in the comments down below. If you want any other type of videos, please let me know, request those, and I'll be happy to get them out. Have a great day. Bye.